The rain hammered against the diner's windows like angry fists, each drop a tiny explosion against the glass. I could smell the coffee burning on the hot plate. Acrid, bitter, the kind of smell that clung to your uniform and followed you home. My feet ached in shoes 2 sizes too small. Hand-me-downs from my cousin who'd left town with promises to send money that never came. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, their harsh white glow making everything look sickly, washed out, like we were all ghosts haunting this forgotten corner of the city. "Table 4 needs a refill, Maya." Sharon's voice cut through the din of clattering plates and muted conversation. I nodded, grabbing the coffee pot with hands that trembled from exhaustion. 14 hours. I'd been on my feet for 14 hours, and the night shift had just begun. The diner smelled like grease and desperation, like every other place I'd worked in this god-forsaken city. Nobody saw me here. Nobody really looked. I was just the girl who poured coffee, who smiled when she didn't mean it, who existed in the spaces between other people's lives. I moved between tables like a shadow, refilling cups, clearing plates, my body operating on autopilot, while my mind drifted to the stack of bills on my kitchen counter. Rent was due in 3 days. The electricity company had sent a final notice. My daughter's medication cost more than I made in a week, and the hospital wouldn't extend our credit anymore. The bell above the door chimed, letting in a gust of wind and rain that made the candles on the tables flicker. I glanced up out of habit, ready with my practiced smile, but the words died in my throat. 3 men entered, but only one mattered. He was tall, taller than anyone should be allowed to be, dressed in a black suit that probably cost more than my entire year's salary. Rain dotted his shoulders like diamonds, and his dark hair was slicked back, revealing a face carved from granite and shadow. Even from across the room, I could see the sharp line of his jaw. The way his eyes, dark, impossibly dark, swept the diner with the kind of assessment that made my skin prickle with instinctive awareness, danger. Every cell in my body screamed it. The 2 men flanking him were clearly security. They moved with military precision, their eyes constantly scanning, hands resting at their sides in a way that suggested weapons hidden beneath expensive jackets. One spoke quietly into his wrist, and I realized he was wearing an earpiece. Who were these people? The man in the center, the one who commanded the space simply by existing in it, turned his gaze toward me, and I forgot how to breathe. His eyes pinned me in place, dark and fathomless, like looking into deep water where you couldn't see the bottom. There was something ancient in that gaze, something that had seen too much, done too much. I looked away quickly, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Maya," Sharon hissed from behind the counter. "Those are your tables. Get moving." My tables. Right. Because apparently, the universe had decided tonight was the night I'd serve men who looked like they'd stepped out of a crime thriller. I smoothed down my stained apron, tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, and approached their booth with my notepad clutched like a shield. "Good evening, gentlemen. Can I get you—" "Coffee." Black. The man in the center didn't look up from his phone. His voice was deep, textured like aged whiskey, with an accent I couldn't quite place. European, maybe. Or Russian. It carried authority, the kind of voice that didn't expect to be questioned. 3. One of the guards added, his eyes never leaving the door. I nodded and hurried back to the counter, my hands shaking as I poured the coffee. The pot felt heavy, unwieldy. Through the pass-through window to the kitchen, I could see Sharon watching the men with wide eyes. "Do you know who that is?" she whispered urgently when I brought the pot to the counter. "Should I?" She looked at me like I'd grown a second head. "That's Dante Volkov. The Dante Volkov." When I still showed no recognition, she grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "The North Side? The shipping warehouses? The underground clubs? Girl, he basically owns half this city." The name meant nothing to me. I didn't follow crime news or society pages. I worked, I went home to my daughter, I survived. That was all I had energy for. "He's just a customer," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Just a—" Sharon laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. "Maya, men like that don't just show up at places like this. Something's happening, something bad." But I had rent to pay, and a daughter who needed me, so I picked up the coffee pot and 3 cups and walked back to their table on legs that felt like water. I set the cups down carefully, hyper-aware of the man's presence even though he still hadn't looked up. Up close, I could smell his cologne. Expensive, subtle, something with notes of cedar and smoke. It mixed with the scent of rain on his clothes, creating an intoxicating combination that made my head spin. Will there be anything else? My voice came out smaller than I intended. No. Curt. Dismissive. I turned to leave, relief flooding through me, when one of the guards spoke. Boss, we should— The words were cut off by a commotion outside. Through the rain-streaked windows, I could see headlights, too many of them, and the sound of car doors slamming, shouting. Then the unmistakable crack of gunfire. The diner erupted into chaos. Customers screamed, diving under tables. Sharon disappeared behind the counter. The 2 guards immediately moved, flanking Dante Volkov, their hands going to their jackets. But the man himself remained perfectly still, his expression unchanging except for the slight tightening around his eyes. More gunfire. Closer now. The front window exploded in a shower of glass. One of the guards grabbed my arm, pulling me down just as bullets tore through the space where I'd been standing. I hit the floor hard, my knees cracking against the tile. Pain shot up my legs, but it was distant, muffled by the ringing in my ears and the thundering of my heart. Get down! The guard shouted, but I was already pressed flat against the floor, my face inches from broken glass and spilled coffee. Through the chaos, through the screaming and the gunfire and the smell of gunpowder mixing with burnt coffee, I saw him. Dante Volkov had moved with impossible speed, drawing a weapon I hadn't seen him carrying. He was at the window, returning fire with the calm precision of someone who'd done this 1,000 times before. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real, but the glass cutting into my palms was real. The blood on my uniform was real. The terror clawing up my throat was devastatingly, horrifyingly real. The gunfire stopped as suddenly as it had started. In the ringing silence that followed, I heard car engines roaring away, tires squealing on wet pavement. Then nothing but the rain and the sound of my own ragged breathing. Clear, one of the guards said into his wrist. Dante Volkov lowered his weapon, his movements controlled, economical. His eyes swept the diner, cataloging damage, assessing threats. When his gaze landed on me, still pressed to the floor, trembling, probably looking like a terrified animal, something flickered across his face. Not quite concern, but something close to it. You, he said, gesturing toward me with 2 fingers. Come here. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to hide, to become invisible the way I'd learned to do so well, but my body betrayed me, responding to the command in his voice before my brain could catch up. I pushed myself up on shaking arms, ignoring the glass embedded in my palms, and stood. The diner looked like a war zone, shattered glass everywhere, bullet holes in the walls, customers huddled under tables, some crying, some frozen in shock, and in the middle of it all stood Dante Volkov, not a hair out of place, looking at me with those fathomless dark eyes. What's your name? He asked. Maya. I hated how my voice shook. Maya. He said it slowly, like he was tasting it. You're bleeding. I looked down at my hands. Blood dripped from my palms where glass had cut into the skin. I hadn't even felt it. I'm okay. Marco. He didn't raise his voice, but one of the guards immediately stepped forward. Get the car. We're leaving. Sir, the police. We'll be here in 4 minutes. He checked his watch, a flash of gold against his wrist, which gives us 3.5 minutes to be gone. The guard, Marco, nodded and spoke rapidly into his wrist. Through the broken window, I could see a black SUV pulling up, its windows so darkly tinted they looked like pools of oil. Dante Volkov took a step toward me, and I instinctively stepped back. The corner of his mouth twitched, almost like he found my fear amusing. You saw something tonight. It wasn't a question. I didn't see anything, I said quickly. Too quickly. I don't know anything. I'm nobody. I won't say anything, I swear. Relax. The word was soft, but carried the weight of absolute command. I'm not going to hurt you, but you're coming with me. My blood turned to ice. What? No, I can't. I have a daughter. which is exactly why you're coming with me." His eyes never left mine. "Those men weren't shooting at the diner, Maya. They were shooting at me. And you were in the way, which means they saw you, which means you're not safe here. But I didn't do anything. Doesn't matter what you did." He was already moving toward the door, his guards flanking him. "Matters what they think you saw. What you might tell the police." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. "Sir, we need to move," Marco said urgently. Dante Volkov paused at the door, rain streaming in through the broken frame. He turned back to look at me, and in his eyes, I saw something that terrified me more than the guns, more than the blood, more than everything that had just happened. Inevitability. "You can come willingly," he said quietly, "or Marco can carry you. Either way, you're leaving with us. Choose." The sirens were getting louder. Red and blue lights painted the walls. I thought of my daughter, safe with my neighbor 3 blocks away. I thought of the bills on my counter, the medication running low, the life I'd barely been holding together with spit and prayers. I thought of how invisible I'd been just 20 minutes ago, just another tired waitress in a forgotten diner. And I thought of the blood on my hands, and the bodies that might follow if I stayed. I took a step toward the door, then another. Dante Volkov's expression didn't change, but something in his posture relaxed, just slightly. Smart girl. The rain hit me like a physical blow as I stepped outside. Marco opened the door of the SUV, and I climbed in, my wet uniform clinging to my skin, my hands still bleeding, my entire world narrowing to this moment, this choice, this terrible, irrevocable mistake. Dante Volkov slid in beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. The door closed with a heavy, final thunk. The locks engaged with a click that sounded like a prison cell door closing. The SUV pulled away just as the first police car skidded into the parking lot, and I watched through the tinted windows as the diner, my job, my life, everything I'd known, disappeared into the rainy darkness behind us. The SUV moved through the city like a shark through dark water, silent, predatory, unstoppable. I pressed myself against the door, as far from Dante Volkov as the confined space would allow, my bleeding palms leaving smears on the leather seat. The interior smelled like leather and that cedar smoke cologne, so different from the grease and burnt coffee I'd been breathing for hours that it made my head spin. Nobody spoke. The only sounds were the whisper of tires on wet pavement and the rhythmic thump of the windshield wipers. Through the tinted windows, the city slid past in streaks of neon and shadow. I didn't recognize these streets. We were heading away from the north side, away from everything familiar, into neighborhoods where the buildings grew taller and the lights grew brighter. "Where are you taking me?" My voice sounded strange in the silence, small and fractured. "Somewhere safe." Dante didn't look at me. He was checking his phone, his thumbs moving across the screen with practiced efficiency. In the glow of the display, his face looked carved from stone, all sharp angles and hard edges. "Safe for who?" That made him look up. His eyes found mine in the darkness, and I saw amusement flicker there, cold and brief as lightning. "Does it matter?" "Yes." I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly aware that I was still in my stained uniform, that I smelled like coffee and fear, that I was bleeding on the seats of a car that probably cost more than everything I owned combined. "I need to get back to my daughter. Your daughter is being collected as we speak." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What? No. You can't." "I can, and I did." His voice remained calm, factual. "Marco, status on the child?" The guard in the front passenger seat spoke into his wrist, listened, then turned slightly. "Victor has her. The neighbor didn't ask questions. They're en route to the safe house now." My heart was trying to claw its way out of my chest. "You took my daughter? You kidnapped my daughter?" "I protected her." Dante's eyes were hard as obsidian. "Those men saw you, Maya. They have resources, connections. How long do you think it would take them to find out where you live, who you love, how you can be hurt?" I couldn't breathe. The SUV was too small, the air too thick. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. 6 hours ago, my biggest worry had been whether I could pick up extra shifts to cover the electric bill. Now I was in a car with a man who'd just had my daughter taken by strangers. "She needs her medication," I said, hating how my voice broke. "She has asthma. The inhaler is in the bathroom cabinet, the blue one, not the red. Victor knows. He has the medication. How could he possibly? Because I told him to get everything. Dante slipped his phone into his jacket pocket. Clothes, medication, anything with sentimental value. Your apartment is being cleared as we speak. The world tilted. Cleared? What does that mean? It means you're not going back there. You can't just, I have a lease. You have a life expectancy of approximately 48 hours if you go back to that apartment. His voice was still calm, matter of fact, like he was discussing the weather. The Kozlov brothers don't leave witnesses. They're not creative, but they're thorough. They'll torture you for information you don't have. Then they'll kill you slowly to make an example. Is that what you want for your daughter? To watch her mother die? I pressed my hands over my mouth, tasting blood and salt. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I wouldn't let them fall. Not here. Not in front of him. The SUV turned onto a private road, and I saw gates ahead. Tall, wrought iron, topped with cameras. They swung open as we approached, closing immediately behind us with a clang that echoed in my bones. The driveway stretched ahead, lined with trees whose branches formed a canopy overhead, blocking out the rain and the city lights. Then the house came into view. House was too small a word for it. Mansion, maybe. Estate. It was 3 stories of stone and glass, lit from within like a beacon. Manicured lawns stretched in every direction, dotted with sculptures I couldn't identify in the darkness. A fountain dominated the circular drive, water cascading over marble tiers even in the rain. This is where you live? The question escaped before I could stop it. One of the places. Dante was already opening his door before the SUV fully stopped. Come. It wasn't a request. I climbed out on shaking legs, my wet shoes squelching on the pristine pavement. The rain had lessened to a drizzle, but I was already soaked through, shivering despite the warm night air. The front doors opened, and a woman appeared. 50s. Gray hair pulled back in a severe bun, wearing a dark dress that screamed, housekeeper. Mr. Volkov, she said with a slight accent, Russian or Ukrainian. The guest room is prepared, and the child, Lily. I started forward, but Marco's hand on my arm stopped me. Let her finish, Dante said quietly. The housekeeper's expression softened slightly when she looked at me. The little girl is upstairs, settled in the nursery. She was frightened but unharmed. Victor gave her the medication and some warm milk. She's sleeping now. The relief nearly buckled my knees. I need to see her. You will. Dante was already moving toward the entrance. But first, you're going to shower, change, and let someone look at your hands. Then we'll talk. I don't want to talk. I want my daughter. He paused at the threshold, turning to look at me with an expression I couldn't read. Your daughter is safe, warm, and sleeping. You are bleeding, soaking wet, and in shock. 10 more minutes won't hurt her, but if you pass out from blood loss or hypothermia, you won't be any good to anyone. Think, Maya. Use your head. I hated that he was right. Hated the reasonable tone, the calm logic, the way he looked at me like I was a problem to be solved rather than a person whose life had just been destroyed. But I followed him inside. The interior of the house was just as overwhelming as the exterior. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, artwork that probably cost more than my entire apartment building. My wet shoes left tracks on the pristine floor, and I wanted to apologize, to explain, to make myself smaller and less intrusive. The housekeeper, Dante introduced her as Mrs. Petrov, led me up a sweeping staircase to the 2nd floor. The hallway seemed to stretch forever, lined with doors and more artwork, more luxury, more evidence of a world I'd never belonged to. Here, Mrs. Petrov said, opening a door to reveal a bedroom larger than my entire apartment. The bathroom is through there. I've laid out some clothes. They might be a bit large, but they'll do for tonight. I'll send someone to tend to your hands when you're done. She left before I could thank her, closing the door with a soft click. I stood in the middle of the room, dripping on an oriental rug that probably cost more than a year of my salary, and tried to process everything that had happened in the last hour. Failed. My brain couldn't hold it all. The gunfire, the blood, the car, the mansion, my daughter taken by strangers. The shower helped. The water ran pink with blood from my palms, but the heat seeped into my bones, chasing away the cold that had settled there. I used expensive soap that smelled like lavender and honey, washed my hair with shampoo that probably cost more per ounce than I made per hour. The towels were thick and soft, like wrapping myself in clouds. The clothes Mrs. Petrov had left were simple. Soft yoga pants and a cashmere sweater in dove gray. They were too big, hanging off my frame, but they were clean and dry and impossibly soft against my skin. I found bandages in the bathroom cabinet and wrapped my palms as best I could, though blood still seeped through. A knock at the door made me jump. "Come in," I called, expecting Mrs. Petrov. It was Dante Volkov. He'd changed too. Still all in black, but more casual now. Dark jeans and a black Henley that clung to his frame in ways that made it impossible not to notice the breadth of his shoulders, the lean strength of his body. His hair was still damp, slicked back from his face, and he carried a first aid kit in one hand. "May I?" He gestured to my hands. "I can do it myself. You're doing it wrong." He was already crossing the room, pulling up a chair, sitting before I could protest. "Give me your hands." Every instinct screamed at me not to. But my hands were throbbing, the bandages already soaked through, and I was so tired, so desperately tired. I held out my hands. His touch was surprisingly gentle as he unwrapped the bandages I'd applied. His fingers were warm, steady, and I found myself watching his face as he worked. The concentration in his eyes, the slight furrow between his brows. Up close, I could see the faint scar along his jaw, another cutting through his left eyebrow, evidence of a life lived in violence. "This one needs stitches," he said, examining a particularly deep cut on my right palm. "I can't afford. I have a doctor on retainer. He'll be here within the hour." He was already cleaning the wounds with antiseptic that burned like fire. I hissed through my teeth, trying not to pull away. "You did well tonight, at the diner. Most people freeze or panic. You stayed calm. I was terrified. I know. But you still moved when I told you to, still got in the car, still made the smart choice." He began wrapping fresh bandages, his movements practiced and efficient. "Why?" "You said my daughter was in danger, and you believed me. Should I have?" His eyes lifted to meet mine, and the intensity in them made my breath catch. "Yes. I don't lie about things that matter. The Kozlov brothers are animals. They would have found you, Maya, would have hurt you in ways you can't imagine. And they would have made sure you stayed alive long enough to regret every second of it. Why?" The question came out as a whisper. "Why did they want to hurt me? I didn't see anything. I don't know anything." "You were there. That's enough." He finished with my left hand and sat back, his eyes still holding mine. "They'll assume I spoke to you, told you something. Shared information. In their world, there's no such thing as an innocent bystander." "And in your world?" Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, or respect. "In my world, you pay your debts and protect what's yours. You keep your word, even when it costs you. You show mercy when you can, and ruthlessness when you must." He stood, towering over me. "Your daughter, Lily, correct?" My heart clenched. "How do you know her name?" "I know everything about you, Maya Rodriguez. 26 years old, single mother, father unknown, or at least unnamed on the birth certificate. You work 3 jobs but still can't make ends meet. Your daughter has asthma and a mild heart murmur that the doctors say she'll grow out of. You're 2 months behind on rent, 3 months behind on utilities, and you've been stealing food from the diner to feed her." Shame burned through me, hot and acidic. I was going to pay it back. "I don't care about the food." He moved to the window, looking out at the rain-soaked grounds. "I care that you're desperate enough to steal. Desperate people make mistakes. They take risks they shouldn't. They trust people they shouldn't trust. Like getting into cars with dangerous men?" He turned back to me, and for the first time, I saw something that might have been amusement in his eyes. Especially that. A soft knock interrupted whatever he might have said next. Mrs. Petrov entered, carrying a tray with tea and what looked like sandwiches. "The child woke up," she said gently. "She's asking for her mother." I was moving before she finished speaking, pushing past Dante, following Mrs. Petrov down the hallway to a room at the far end. She opened the door, and I saw her. my baby girl, my whole world, sitting up in a bed that dwarfed her small frame, tears streaking her face. "Mama!" I ran to her, pulling her into my arms, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo, mixed with the medicinal smell of her inhaler. She was wearing new pajamas, soft pink cotton covered in stars, and she was warm and safe and whole. "I'm here, baby. I'm here. It's okay." "The man said you were coming," she sobbed into my shoulder. "He said you were safe. But I was scared, Mama. I was so scared." "I know, sweetheart. I know." I held her tighter, feeling her small body shake with sobs. Over her head, I could see Dante standing in the doorway, watching us with an expression I couldn't decipher. "Is this our new house?" Lily pulled back, wiping her eyes. "It's really big. And pretty. The lady gave me cookies and milk. And she said I could have any toy I wanted from the room next door." "We're just visiting," I said carefully, not knowing what else to tell her. "How do you explain to a 6-year-old that you've been essentially kidnapped by a crime lord, that men with guns want to hurt you, that your life as you knew it was over?" "Oh." Her face fell. "I like it here. It smells nice. And it's warm. Our apartment is always cold." The word stabbed through me. I'd failed her. Failed to give her even the basics. Warmth, safety, enough food. And now a stranger had given her more in 2 hours than I'd been able to give her in months. "Why don't you stay with Lily tonight?" Dante said from the doorway. "Get some rest. We'll talk in the morning." "Wait." I looked up at him, this dangerous man who'd upended my entire world. "Why are you doing this? Really? You could have just left me there. Let the police handle it. Why bring me here?" He was quiet for a long moment, his dark eyes unreadable. "Because you remind me of someone," he said finally. "Someone who needed help and didn't get it. Someone who died because I wasn't paying attention." His jaw tightened. "I won't make that mistake twice." He left before I could respond, closing the door softly behind him. I held my daughter as she fell back asleep, her small hand clutching my bandaged one, and stared at the ceiling of this beautiful prison. Outside, the rain continued to fall, washing away the blood from the diner, the evidence of the life I'd lost. And somewhere in this vast house, a dangerous man planned my future without asking my permission. Morning came too soon, and not soon enough. I'd barely slept, listening to Lily's breathing, cataloging every sound in this unfamiliar house. Footsteps in distant hallways, doors opening and closing, the hum of security systems I couldn't see but could feel watching. When pale sunlight finally crept through the heavy curtains, I extracted myself carefully from Lily's embrace and padded to the window. The view took my breath away. Manicured gardens stretched as far as I could see, dotted with fountains and sculptures. Beyond the high walls, I could make out the city skyline in the distance, hazy in the morning light. It was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. A gilded cage with $1 million view. A soft knock made me turn. "Mrs." Petrov entered carrying another tray, this one laden with breakfast foods that made my stomach growl despite my anxiety. "Mr. Volkov requests your presence in his study at 9, she said, setting the tray on a table by the window. "The child may stay here with me. I raised 3 daughters. I know how to care for little ones." I started, but she held up a hand. "He is not a patient man, dear, and you will want to hear what he has to say." Her expression softened. "Eat first. You'll need your strength." She left, and I stared at the food. Fresh fruit, pastries, eggs prepared 3 different ways, orange juice in a crystal glass. More food than Lily and I usually had in a week. I forced myself to eat, knowing she was right. Whatever came next, I couldn't face it on an empty stomach. Lily woke as I was finishing, her eyes wide and curious as she took in the room in daylight. "Mama, is this real? Or am I dreaming?" "It's real, baby." I helped her to the table, watched her eyes light up at the food. "But remember, we're just visiting." "I like visiting." She grabbed a croissant, tearing into it with the enthusiasm of a child who'd eaten too many cheap dinners. "Can we visit every day?" My heart broke a little more. "We'll see." At precisely 9 o'clock, a young man in a dark suit appeared at the door. "Ms. Rodriguez, Mr. Volkov is ready for you." I kissed Lily's forehead. She was already engrossed in a coloring book Mrs. Petrov had produced from somewhere, and followed him through the maze of hallways. The house looked different in daylight, somehow larger and more intimidating. We passed rooms filled with leather-bound books, rooms with grand pianos, rooms whose purpose I couldn't even guess. The study was on the first floor, behind double doors of dark wood. The young man knocked once, opened the door, and gestured me inside. Dante Volkov stood behind a massive desk, talking on the phone in rapid Russian. He was dressed impeccably again. Charcoal suit, crisp white shirt open at the collar, no tie. Behind him, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the gardens. The room smelled like coffee and old books, and that cedar smoke scent I was beginning to associate with him. He held up one finger, "Wait," and continued his conversation. I stood there awkwardly, taking in the room. One wall was covered in monitors showing security feeds from around the property. Another held weapons, not displayed for show, but locked in a glass case, functional and maintained. A third wall was dedicated to what looked like family photos, though I was too far away to see them clearly. "Da, korosho, stelai eto." He ended the call and turned his full attention to me. "Sit." I sat in one of the leather chairs facing his desk, feeling like a student called to the principal's office. He remained standing, and I realized it was a power play. Him looking down at me, controlling the space, the conversation, everything. "Coffee?" he asked. "No, thank you. You should eat more. You're too thin." He poured himself a cup from a carafe on his desk, his movements economical and precise. "How's your daughter?" "Happy, well-fed, warm." I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. All the things I couldn't give her. His eyes sharpened. "Self-pity doesn't suit you, and kidnapping doesn't suit you, but here we are." The words were out before I could stop them. I braced for anger, for violence, for whatever men like him did to women who spoke out of turn. But he just smiled, a small cold curve of his lips that didn't reach his eyes. "There it is," he said softly. "The spine. I was wondering when I'd see it again." He took a sip of his coffee, watching me over the rim. "You're not kidnapped, Maya. You're protected. There's a difference." "Is there? Because I can't leave, can I?" "No." He set down his cup. "You can't. Not yet. Not until the situation with the Kozlov brothers is resolved. And how long will that take? That depends on them." He moved around the desk, perching on the edge of it, closer to me now. Close enough that I could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes, the shadow of stubble along his jaw. "They made a move on me last night. Bold, stupid, reckless. It tells me they're desperate. Desperate men make mistakes." "What did you do to make them desperate?" "I exist." He said it simply, factually. "My family and theirs have been at war for 3 generations. Territory, money, power. The usual things men kill each other over. Last month, I took something that belonged to them. They want it back." "What did you take?" His smile widened slightly. "Their primary money laundering operation. 6 warehouses, 2 shipping companies, and a very creative accountant who decided he preferred working for someone who wouldn't kill his family if he made a mistake." I stared at him. "You're telling me this why? If I'm not supposed to know anything?" "Because you're already involved, Maya. The moment you got in that car, you became part of this world. And in this world, ignorance doesn't protect you. It gets you killed." He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, bringing his face level with mine. "I need you to understand what you're dealing with. What they're dealing with. So you'll trust me when I tell you that you're safer here than anywhere else." "I don't trust you." "Smart." He didn't seem offended, "but you will. Because I'm the only thing standing between your daughter and the kind of men who use children as leverage." The words sent ice through my veins. "They wouldn't." "They would. They have. They will again if given the chance." His voice was flat, factual, terrifying in its certainty. "The Kozlov brothers don't have my restraint. They believe fear is the best motivator. Pain is the best teacher. and children make excellent message boards. I thought I might be sick. What do you want from me? Nothing you're not willing to give. He stood, moving back behind his desk, putting space between us again. You and Lily will stay here. You'll be safe, fed, cared for. In exchange, you'll do exactly what I tell you, when I tell you. No questions, no arguments, no attempts to leave or contact anyone from your old life. That's it? I'm just a prisoner here? You're a guest. His tone hardened, with restrictions for your own protection. There are worse fates, Maya. And what happens when this is over? When the Kozlov brothers are no longer a threat? Do we just go back to our lives like none of this happened? Something flickered in his expression, too quick for me to read. We'll discuss that when the time comes. No, I stood, my hands clenched at my sides despite the pain in my palms. We'll discuss it now. I need to know what I'm agreeing to, what happens to us. He regarded me in silence for a long moment, his dark eyes unreadable. Then he moved to the wall of family photos, his back to me. Do you know what happened to my mother? The question caught me off guard. No. She was a witness. His voice was quiet, almost gentle. Wrong place, wrong time. She saw something she shouldn't have. A murder, gang-related. Nothing to do with my father's business. She testified because she thought it was the right thing to do. Noble. Brave. He touched one of the photos, his fingers gentle on the frame. They gutted her in our kitchen while I hid in the pantry. I was 8 years old. I watched through a crack in the door while they took turns with the knife, asking her questions she didn't know the answers to. Horror washed over me in cold waves. I'm sorry. Don't be. He turned back to me, and his eyes were empty, black as the void. It taught me an important lesson. The world doesn't care about noble or brave. It cares about power and ruthlessness and the willingness to do what others won't. He moved closer, stopping just a foot away. You remind me of her. Same eyes. Same determination to do the right thing even when it costs you. Same foolish belief that the world will be fair if you just try hard enough. I'm not your mother. No, you're not. Because I won't let you die like she did. His hand came up, and I flinched, but he just tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, his touch surprisingly gentle. You and your daughter will stay here until this is finished. Then we'll reassess. That's all I can promise you right now. That's not good enough. It's all you're getting. He stepped back, the moment of vulnerability gone, replaced by cold authority. Mrs. Petrov will show you around the house. There are rules you need to know, boundaries you can't cross. Learn them. Follow them. And maybe, when this is over, you'll walk away with something better than what you had. And if I refuse, if I take my daughter and leave right now, then you'll both be dead before sunset. He said it without emotion, without threat. Just simple fact. I have 37 men on this property. You wouldn't make it past the front gate, and even if you did, the Kozlov brothers have eyes everywhere. They know your face now, Maya. They know you were with me. That makes you a target. Permanently. The reality of it crashed over me like a wave. There was no going back, no returning to my old life, as terrible as it had been. The moment I'd gotten in that SUV, I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. I need to see Lily. Of course. His phone buzzed, and he glanced at it, his expression hardening. Go. Spend time with your daughter. Mrs. Petrov will find you for lunch. I was at the door when his voice stopped me. Maya? I turned. For what it's worth, he said quietly, not looking at me, his attention on whatever message he'd received. I am sorry. You didn't ask for this, didn't deserve it. But I will keep you safe. That's a promise I intend to keep. I left without responding, my mind reeling, my heart pounding. The hallways seemed longer now, more maze-like, and I was grateful when Mrs. Petrov appeared as if summoned, guiding me back to Lily's room. My daughter was painting, her small hands covered in bright colors, her face lit with joy I hadn't seen in months. She looked up as I entered, her smile wide and guileless. Mama, look what I made. It's us in a castle. I looked at the painting, crude, childish, perfect. 2 stick figures holding hands in front of a building with too many windows and a garden full of flowers. It's beautiful, baby. Can we really stay here, Mama? Please? I like it here. There's so much food, and my room is warm, and the lady said there's a library with 1,000 books. I knelt beside her, taking her paint-stained hands in my bandaged ones. Would you like that? To stay here for a while? Yes. She threw her arms around my neck. It's like a fairy tale, like we're princesses in a castle. If only she knew how dark this fairy tale really was. The day passed in a blur of tours and rules. Mrs. Petrov showed me the house, 23 rooms, not counting bathrooms and closets. A gym, a pool, a library that did indeed contain thousands of books. A kitchen that looked like something from a cooking show. Gardens with hidden corners and quiet places where you could almost forget you were in a prison. But the reminders were everywhere. Cameras in every room except the bathrooms and bedrooms. Guards at every entrance. Locked doors that required codes I didn't have. And beyond the walls, the city where men with guns searched for the waitress who'd gotten away. That night, after Lily fell asleep clutching a new stuffed bear Mrs. Petrov had given her, I stood at the window of my assigned bedroom. Not the guest room from last night, but a permanent space on the second floor with a view of the gardens. The room was beautiful, all soft grays and whites, with a bed larger than any I'd ever slept in, and a bathroom with a tub deep enough to drown in. I watched the lights of the city in the distance, and wondered if anyone had noticed I was gone. Sharon from the diner would have talked to the police by now. They'd be looking for me, probably thinking I was dead or worse. My landlord would wonder where his rent was. My other jobs would replace me without a second thought. I'd been invisible before, just another struggling single mother in a city full of them. Now I was a ghost, erased from my own life, trapped in luxury I'd never wanted with a man I didn't understand. A knock at the door made me turn. It was late, after midnight, and I couldn't imagine who would be visiting. I opened it to find Dante Volkov standing in the hallway, still dressed despite the hour, looking like he hadn't slept in days. "Get some rest," he said quietly. "Tomorrow starts your new life, Maya Rodriguez. Better or worse than the old one, that's up to you." He walked away before I could respond, his footsteps silent on the plush carpet, leaving me standing in the doorway of my gilded cage, wondering what fresh hell tomorrow would bring. 3 weeks passed like a fever dream. I fell into a rhythm I never expected. Mornings with Lily in the sunroom where she did lessons with a tutor Dante had hired. Afternoons exploring the vast library or walking the gardens under the watchful eyes of guards who tried and failed to be inconspicuous. Evenings were quiet dinners, sometimes just Lily and me, sometimes with Mrs. Petrov fussing over us like we were her own family. And always, the awareness of him. Dante Volkov moved through the house like a shadow king, appearing and disappearing at odd hours. His presence felt even when he was nowhere to be seen. Sometimes I'd catch glimpses of him through windows, talking intensely with men in dark suits, making phone calls in languages I didn't understand. Standing alone in the garden at dawn with a cigarette and an expression of such profound loneliness it made my chest ache. He rarely spoke to me directly, a nod in passing, brief questions about whether we had everything we needed. Once, he'd stopped Lily in the hallway to admire a picture she'd drawn, and I'd watched from around the corner as he knelt to her level, his voice gentle in a way I'd never heard it, asking her about the colors she'd chosen, the story behind the image. The transformation had been startling. This man who commanded empires and ordered deaths with a phone call, crouching in a hallway to seriously discuss a 6-year-old's crayon drawing. When he stood and saw me watching, something unreadable crossed his face before he masked it. Nodding once and walking away, I was starting to understand why Mrs. Petrov looked at him with such fierce loyalty, why his men would die for him. Several had, judging by conversations I'd overheard. There was something magnetic about him, something that drew people in, even as his danger pushed them away. It terrified me how quickly I was becoming accustomed to this life. How easily Lily had adapted, how her nightmares had faded, replaced by dreams of the garden and the library, and the warm meals that appeared like magic 3 times a day. She was gaining weight, the hollow look leaving her cheeks. Her asthma attacks had decreased. The stress of our old life had been making it worse, the doctor explained when he came to check on her. Everything about this place was better than what we'd had, except for the fact that we were prisoners. The reminder came on a Tuesday afternoon. I'd been reading in the library, a first edition of Jane Eyre that I held like it might shatter, when raised voices drew me to the window. Below, in the circular drive, I saw Dante facing off against two men I didn't recognize. Even from this distance, I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hand rested casually near his jacket, where I knew he kept a gun. One of the men grabbed his arm, and suddenly there were guards everywhere, weapons drawn, the peaceful afternoon shattering into something sharp and dangerous. I couldn't hear the words, but I could see Dante's face, cold, merciless, terrifying. He said something that made the man who'd grabbed him go white, then step back with his hands raised. The men left. The guards dispersed, and Dante stood alone in the drive, his hands clenched into fists, his head bowed, looking like a man carrying the weight of 1,000 sins. That night, he appeared at dinner for the first time in a week. "May I join you?" he asked, standing at the entrance to the dining room where Lily and I were eating. "It's your house," I said, keeping my voice neutral. He sat across from Lily, and her face lit up. "Mr. Dante, look, I lost a tooth." She showed him the gap in her smile with pride. "Did the tooth fairy come?" he asked seriously. "Not yet. Mama said she might not know where to find me here. Then I'll make sure she gets the message." He pulled a gold coin from his pocket. I had no idea what it was worth, but it gleamed like captured sunlight. "Consider this an advance payment." Lily's eyes went wide. "Really? For me? Really?" He placed it in her small palm, his large hand gentle. "But you have to promise to use it wisely." "I promise." She clutched the coin like treasure, beaming at him with uncomplicated joy. Mrs. Petrov served the meal, some kind of roasted chicken with vegetables I couldn't name but that tasted like heaven, and we ate in surprising comfort. Dante asked Lily about her day, her lessons, her favorite books. He listened with genuine attention as she chattered about the garden and the cat she'd found and named Snowball, despite it being entirely black. "Can we keep him, Mama? Please?" "Mister." Dante said it's okay. I looked at Dante, who had the grace to look slightly apologetic. The cat was already living on the property. Feral, but friendly enough. I thought, she needs something of her own, I finished quietly. Something that's hers to love. Our eyes met across the table, and something passed between us, understanding, maybe, or recognition. He knew what it was like to be powerless, to have everything controlled by forces you couldn't fight. The coin, the cat, the kindness to my daughter. These were small freedoms in a prison of silk and gold. After dinner, after Lily was in bed with Snowball purring beside her, I found Dante in his study. The door was open, and he was standing at the window again, a glass of amber liquid in his hand. "Thank you," I said from the doorway, "for being kind to her. You didn't have to be. She's a child. Of course I did." He didn't turn around. Children shouldn't pay for their parents' mistakes. Or their parents' bad luck. Is that what this is? Bad luck? You tell me. He finally turned, and in the lamplight he looked exhausted. There were shadows under his eyes, tension in every line of his body. "If you hadn't been working that night, if you'd called in sick, if you'd been assigned different tables, would that be luck? Or fate?" "I don't believe in fate, neither did I, until I saw you standing in that diner, looking exactly like someone who'd been dead for 30 years. He took a drink, grimacing slightly. "My mother. You have her eyes, her stubborn chin, the same way of standing like you're bracing against a wind nobody else can feel. I'm not her. I know." He set down his glass with more force than necessary, but for a moment, when those bullets started flying, all I could see was her. And I thought, not again. Not while I can prevent it. "So this is about your guilt, about saving someone you couldn't save before." "Maybe." He moved closer, and I could smell the whiskey on his breath, the cedar smoke of his cologne. Or maybe I'm just tired of watching innocent people get ground up in wars they didn't start. Maybe I wanted to do something good for once instead of just surviving. You think keeping us prisoner is good? I think keeping you alive is good. His voice dropped, intimate and dangerous. And I think you know, deep down, that you're not really a prisoner here. The door isn't locked, Maya. You could try to leave any time. Your men would stop me, would they? He was close now, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. Try it. Right now. Walk past me, out that door, down the driveway. See what happens. My heart was racing, my palms sweating despite the bandages that had finally come off yesterday. Why would you let me go? Because I want you to choose to stay. His hand came up, cupping my jaw with surprising gentleness. His thumb brushed my cheekbone, and I felt the touch all the way to my toes. I want you to wake up every morning and decide that this, here, with me, in this life, is better than whatever's waiting out there. Even if it's a cage, even if it's wrong, even if you hate yourself for wanting it. I don't want this, I whispered, but it sounded like a lie even to my own ears. Then leave. His thumb traced my lower lip, and I shivered. The door's right there. No one will stop you. I'll have Victor drive you anywhere you want to go. Give you money, new identities, a fresh start. You'll never see me again. I should have run. Should have taken Lily and disappeared into the night, found some way to build a new life far from this beautiful monster and his beautiful prison. But my feet wouldn't move. My body betrayed me, swaying toward him instead of away, drawn by warmth and safety and the terrible, wonderful feeling of being seen. Why? I asked. Why do you care what I choose? Because... He stopped, his jaw clenching. For a moment I thought he wouldn't answer. Then... Because in 3 weeks you've made this house feel less like a mausoleum and more like a home. Because your daughter laughs in the hallways and brings light to places that have been dark for too long. Because when I see you reading in the library or walking in the garden, I remember that there are still beautiful things in this world worth protecting. His hand fell away, and the loss of contact felt like cold water. And because I'm selfish enough to want to keep you here, even knowing it's wrong, even knowing you deserve better than a man with blood on his hands and enemies at every door. Dante. The sound of his name on my lips seemed to break something in him. He kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate and claiming and full of a hunger I didn't know how to answer. His hands tangled in my hair, pulling me closer, and I went willingly, my own hands fisting in his shirt, anchoring myself to him as the world tilted. He tasted like whiskey and danger, and something darker I couldn't name. The kiss consumed me, made me forget every reason this was wrong, every logical argument for why I should push him away. When he backed me against the desk, I didn't resist. When his hands found my waist, my hips, pulling me flush against him, I made a sound I didn't recognize, need and surrender all at once. Then my hand brushed against something cold and hard, the gun he kept in his desk drawer, visible now that we disturbed papers and books. The reminder of what he was, what this life meant, hit me like ice water. I pushed him away, breathing hard, my lips swollen, my body still singing with want. No, we can't. I know. His voice was rough, wrecked. He looked as shaken as I felt. His carefully maintained control finally cracked. Christ, I know. I'm sorry. Don't. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold. Don't apologize. It makes it worse. We stood there in the lamplight, the air between us charged with everything we couldn't say, couldn't acknowledge, couldn't have. Finally, he stepped back, running a hand through his hair, his expression shuddering. Get some rest, Maya. Tomorrow is going to be difficult. The words sent alarm through me. Why? What's happening tomorrow? The Kozlov brothers have agreed to a meeting. Neutral territory, both sides represented. We're going to end this. His eyes met mine, dark and bottomless, one way or another. And us? After tomorrow, you'll be free to go. Free to take your daughter and start over somewhere safe. I'll make sure you have everything you need, money, documentation, protection until you're established. You have my word. It was everything I'd wanted to hear 3 weeks ago. Freedom, safety, a chance to rebuild our lives away from this dangerous world. So why did it feel like my heart was being ripped from my chest? And if I don't want to go? The words escaped before I could stop them. Something blazed in his eyes. Hope, triumph, hunger. Before he crushed it down. Then we'll discuss it after the meeting. If I survive. What do you mean, if you survive? The Kozlov brothers are desperate men, Maya. Desperate men are dangerous. This meeting could be a trap, an ambush, an assassination attempt. I go in prepared for all of it. He touched my face one more time. So gently it made tears burn behind my eyes. But I needed you to know, before tomorrow, that you have a choice. You've always had a choice, and whatever you decide, I'll respect it. He left me standing in his study, surrounded by books and weapons, and the ghost of his kiss still burning on my lips. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake, watching shadows dance on the ceiling, feeling the phantom warmth of his hands on my skin, tasting whiskey and want on my tongue. In the room next door, Lily slept peacefully, dreaming innocent dreams in her warm bed with her black cat and her gold coin. And somewhere in this vast house, Dante Volkov prepared for a meeting that might end his life, giving me the freedom I'd begged for and no longer wanted. Dawn broke cold and gray, the sky threatening rain. I stood at my bedroom window watching black SUVs arrive, disgorging men in dark suits who moved with military precision. Dante was in the courtyard, dressed entirely in black, his expression carved from stone as he gave orders I couldn't hear. He looked like a general preparing for war, and perhaps he was. Mrs. Petrov found me there, her face drawn with worry. "Come, dear. Breakfast is ready. The child shouldn't see." She gestured toward the window, the guns, the gathering storm. But it was too late. Lily appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleep from her eyes, Snowball draped over her shoulder. "Mama? Why are there so many cars?" "Mr. Dante has business today," I said carefully, pulling her away from the window. "Important meetings. Will he be back for dinner?" Her innocent question pierced my heart. In 3 weeks, she'd come to expect his presence, to look for him at mealtimes, to save drawings for his approval. He'd become something to her I hadn't intended. A father figure, steady and safe in ways her actual father had never been. I don't know, baby. We ate breakfast in tense silence, or at least I pushed food around my plate while Lily chattered about her plans for the day. Mrs. Petrov kept glancing toward the windows, her hands worrying at her apron. The house felt different, charged with an energy that made my skin prickle. At precisely 8 o'clock, there was a knock at the dining room door. Marco, one of Dante's most trusted guards, stood there looking uncomfortable. "Ms. Rodriguez? Mr. Volkov requests a moment of your time. In private." My heart lurched. "Now? But Please, miss. It's important." I followed him through hallways that seemed darker than usual, more oppressive. He led me not to the study, but to Dante's private quarters. A wing of the house I'd never entered. The bedroom was massive, all dark wood and leather, masculine and austere. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the gardens, currently gray in the morning light. Dante stood at those windows, his back to me, tension visible in every line of his body. He was dressed for war, black tactical clothing instead of his usual suits, a gun visible at his hip, another at his ankle. He looked dangerous, lethal, nothing like the man who'd knelt to talk to my daughter about crayon drawings. "Thank you, Marco." Closed the door. The click of the door shutting felt final. "You wanted to see me?" My voice sounded small in the vast room. He turned, and the expression on his face made my breath catch. "I'm leaving in 20 minutes. The meeting is downtown, in a warehouse that's supposedly neutral territory. I'll have 15 men with me. The Kozlovs will have the same." "That's not. You said this was just a meeting." "It is. But meetings between men like us require insurance." He moved closer, and I could see the shadows under his eyes, evidence of a sleepless night. "I need to tell you something, in case I don't come back." "Don't say that. Listen." His hands gripped my shoulders, intense and urgent. "There's a safe in the closet. Combination is your daughter's birthday, 0618. Inside, you'll find cash, passports for you and Lily with new names, documentation for a house in Vermont, and a phone number. If something happens to me, you call that number. A man named Sergei will come." He'll take you and Lily somewhere safe, help you start over. Everything's paid for, set up. You'll never have to worry about money again. Tears burned my eyes. Why are you telling me this? Because I need you to know that I kept my promise. You'll be safe. Free. You can have the life you deserve, away from all of this. His thumbs brushed my cheeks, catching tears I didn't remember shedding. And because I need you to know that these 3 weeks, having you here, watching you bring light to this tomb, have been the best of my life. Whatever happens today, that's worth something. Dante, please, don't go. Send someone else. Call it off. There has to be another way. There isn't. He kissed my forehead, gentle and final. This ends today. Either the Kozlovs agree to peace, or we go to war. There's no middle ground anymore. Then let me come with you. He actually laughed, though there was no humor in it. Absolutely not. Why? If it's so dangerous, which is exactly why you're staying here, where you're safe, where nothing can touch you or your daughter. His hands framed my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. I have done terrible things, Maya. Things that keep me awake at night, things I can never take back or atone for. But keeping you safe, that's the one good thing I can do. The one choice I can make that actually means something. You mean something to me, I whispered. You and your stupid noble gestures and your gentle hands with my daughter and the way you look at me like I'm something precious instead of just another broken thing you found in the gutter. His expression cracked, showing the raw want beneath. Maya, I don't want to leave. I don't want the house in Vermont or the new identities or any of it. I want to stay here. With you. I want Lily to keep drawing pictures for you to admire. I want to read in your library and walk in your gardens and wake up every morning knowing that this, you, is real. You don't know what you're saying. The life I lead. The enemies I have. I know exactly what I'm saying. I grabbed his shirt, pulling him closer. I've spent 6 years barely surviving, working myself to death for scraps, watching my daughter go without because I couldn't give her better. And in 3 weeks here, I've seen what life could be, not because of the money or the house or any of this. I gestured around us. But because of you, because you see us, because you care, because you made us feel like we matter. You do matter. His voice was rough, wrecked. You matter more than you could possibly know. Then come back to me, go to your meeting, end your war, do whatever you have to do, but come back. I pulled his face down to mine, kissing him with everything I had, fear and hope and want and need. Come back to us. He kissed me like a drowning man, deep and desperate, his hands tangling in my hair, memorizing the shape of me. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard, foreheads pressed together. I will, he promised. I swear to you, I will come back. A knock at the door made us spring apart. Marco's voice came through. Sir, the convoy is ready. Dante's jaw clenched. 2 minutes. He went to a dresser, pulled out a small box, and pressed it into my hands. If I don't make it back, open this. Not before. Promise me. Dante, promise me, Maya. I promise. He kissed me one more time, quick and hard, then strode to the door without looking back. I stood there clutching the mystery box, watching him disappear down the hallway, possibly walking toward his death, taking my heart with him. The next 6 hours were the longest of my life. I tried to keep busy, to maintain normalcy for Lily's sake. We did lessons. We read stories. We played with Snowball in the garden while guards watched from the shadows, their tension palpable. Mrs. Petrov made lunch that I couldn't eat, her own hands shaking as she served it. The house felt empty without him, like something vital had been removed. Every sound made me jump. Every car on the drive made my heart race. The box he'd given me burned in my pocket. A constant reminder of the promise I'd made, the future that hung in the balance. At 2 o'clock, Mrs. Petrov's phone rang. She answered in rapid Russian, her face going white. She looked at me, and I knew. Something had happened. Tell me, I demanded, my voice steadier than I felt. There was shooting, many injured. They're bringing him back now. The world tilted. Is he alive? Yes, but hurt. The doctor is coming. She gripped my hand. You should prepare yourself, dear. It's bad. I sent Lily to her room with strict instructions to stay there, then waited in the foyer as SUVs screamed up the drive. Guards poured out, weapons drawn, securing the perimeter. Then they brought him. Dante was unconscious, blood soaking through his tactical gear, his face pale as death. 2 men carried him between them, moving with urgent precision toward a room I'd never seen before, apparently a medical suite, complete with surgical equipment and a doctor already scrubbing in. Wait! I tried to follow, but Marco stopped me. You can't go in there, miss. Let the doctor work. How bad is it? His expression was grim. He took 3 bullets. 2 went through. 1's still lodged near his spine. He's lost a lot of blood. The next few hours are critical. I sank into a chair in the hallway, my legs giving out. 3 bullets. Near his spine. Critical. The box in my pocket felt like lead. Hours crawled past. Guards came and went, their faces drawn. Mrs. Petrov brought tea I didn't drink. Somewhere in the house, Lily was safe with a nanny who'd been called in, insulated from the chaos. And in that room, a man fought for his life while I sat useless and terrified in the hallway. It was dark when the doctor finally emerged, stripping off bloody gloves. He's stable. Unconscious, but stable. I've removed the bullet, repaired what damage I could. He'll need time to heal, and there's a risk of paralysis depending on how the swelling goes, but he's strong. He'll survive. The relief nearly brought me to my knees. Can I see him? Briefly. Don't tire him. He was pale against white sheets, bandages wrapped around his torso, machines beeping softly, but his chest rose and fell with steady breaths. And when I took his hand, it was warm. You came back, I whispered, pressing my lips to his knuckles. You stubborn, impossible man. You came back. His fingers twitched in mine, a barely there squeeze that might have been intentional, or might have been my imagination. I didn't care. He was alive, breathing. Here. I pulled the box from my pocket, staring at it in the dim light. He'd told me not to open it unless he didn't make it back. But he had made it back, barely. And I needed to know what was so important he'd made me promise. Inside was a key and a note in bold, slashing handwriting. For the house on Maple Street. All 3 of you. Always. I didn't understand at first. Then I pulled out a second piece of paper. A deed for a house in the city, in a good neighborhood with good schools. And it wasn't in my name, or even a fake name. It was in Lily's name, held in trust, with me as guardian. He'd bought us a house, not in Vermont, not far away. Here, in the city, close enough that we could stay, could be part of his life, but safe and separate, ours to keep no matter what happened. My vision blurred with tears. You ridiculous man, I told his unconscious form, making plans for us, trying to take care of us even if you died. Not dead, he mumbled, his voice barely audible. His eyes cracked open, unfocused and dark with pain. Told you. I'd come back. You did. I kissed his hand again, his forehead, his cheek. You kept your promise. Kozlov's agreed to peace. Cost me 3 bullets and half my territory. But it's done. You're safe. His eyes struggled to focus on me. Free to go. Anytime. I know. I found the box. I showed him the deed. A house on Maple Street, all 3 of us. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Close enough to visit. Far enough to be safe. Best I could offer. It's perfect, but I'm not going anywhere. Not yet. Not until you're healed. Maya. Don't argue. You're too weak, and I've already won. I settled into the chair beside his bed, keeping his hand in mine. Besides, someone needs to make sure you follow doctor's orders. And Lily will want to show you the picture she drew today. And Mrs. Petrov has been cooking your favorite foods for when you wake up properly. His eyes closed, but his grip on my hand tightened. Stay. I'm staying. No, stay, here, with me, both of you. Don't take the house. Stay. My heart clenched. Dante, you're not thinking clearly. Never been clearer. His eyes opened again. pinning me with that intense gaze even weakened by pain and drugs. These 3 weeks, best of my life. Can't go back. To empty house. Need you. Need her. Need the light you bring. You're asking me to stay in your world, with all its danger, all its violence. Asking you to stay with me. The world comes with it. But I'll protect you, always. Swear it. I thought of the diner, the endless shifts, the constant fear of not having enough. I thought of Lily's hollow cheeks and her asthma attacks triggered by stress. I thought of being invisible, insignificant, just another casualty of a system that didn't care. And I thought of the past 3 weeks. Lily's laughter echoing through marble halls, warm meals and warm beds, safety, security, stability. And this man, this dangerous, impossible man who'd upended my life and somehow made it immeasurably better. Okay, I whispered. We'll stay. His expression transformed, pain giving way to something that looked almost like wonder. Mean it? I mean it. We'll live in the house on Maple Street. I won't take that from Lily. She needs something that's hers. But we'll be here every day, dinner at least. Maybe breakfast too. Weekends, holidays, we'll be part of your life, and you'll be part of ours. I leaned closer, my lips brushing his. If you'll have us. Always. He pulled me down for a proper kiss. Gentle despite the pain he must be in. My family. My light. My home. Rest now. We'll talk more when you're stronger. Love you, he mumbled, already slipping back into sleep. Both of you, my girls. I sat there as he slept, holding his hand, watching the steady rise and fall of his chest. Outside, dawn was breaking, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. A new day, a new life. The door creaked open, and Lily peeked in, Mrs. Petroff behind her. Mama, is Mr. Dante okay? He's going to be fine, baby. Come here. She climbed into my lap, careful and quiet, her small hand reaching out to touch Dante's. I drew him a picture. Of all of us. You and me and him and Snowball. We're a family. I looked at the drawing she'd brought, crude stick figures holding hands in front of a house, a black cat at their feet, a sun shining overhead. It was simple and perfect, and true in ways that shouldn't be possible, but were. Yes, baby, I said, pulling her close, my other hand still holding Dante's. We're a family. 3 months later, I stood in the kitchen of the house on Maple Street, watching through the window as Dante pushed Lily on the swing set he'd had installed in the backyard. His movements were still careful. The bullet near his spine had caused nerve damage that required physical therapy, but he was healing, growing stronger, laughing more. He'd changed too, in subtle ways. Less time conducting business from home, more time building a legitimate empire to leave behind. He was still dangerous, still commanded absolute loyalty from his men, still had enemies, but he was also the man who read bedtime stories with funny voices, who learned to braid Lily's hair after watching YouTube tutorials, who kissed me goodbye every morning like I was something precious. The house on Maple Street had become our sanctuary, close enough to visit his mansion daily, far enough to have our own space, our own life. Lily went to a good school, had friends, played sports. She was thriving in ways I'd never imagined possible. And me? I'd gone back to school, studying business management with Dante's encouragement and financial support. Not because I needed to work, he made sure we wanted for nothing, but because I wanted to build something of my own, contribute, be more than just the woman he'd saved. Mama, Lily called from the yard. Come push me higher! I stepped outside into the sunshine, into the life I'd never expected but somehow found in the wreckage of a rainy night and a terrible choice that had become the best decision I'd ever made. Dante caught me around the waist as I passed, pulling me close for a kiss that still made my knees weak. Happy? He murmured against my lips. I looked at our daughter shrieking with joy on the swings, at this house that was ours, at this man who'd seen me at my lowest and chosen to lift me up instead of walk away, happier than I ever thought possible, I said honestly, and it was true. We'd come from different worlds, a struggling waitress and a crime lord, a chance encounter and an impossible choice. But here, in this moment, In this life we'd built together, we were simply a family, imperfect, unconventional, built on foundations that would horrify most people. But ours, real, true. And isn't that what matters in the end? Not how the story starts, but how it transforms. Not the darkness we come from, but the light we create together. I'd found a Mafia boss dumped like trash in the aftermath of a gunfight. And my life had changed forever. But he'd found me too. Invisible. Desperate. Barely surviving. And his life had changed just as much. We'd saved each other, and that, I thought, as I ran to push my daughter higher, to make her laugh that pure, joyful sound, was the best fairy tale of all.